So, yeah, thank you. Welcome to Japan virtual visit, and I'm so happy to meet all of you. And thank you to everyone who participate today and those for watching this recording. And I'd like to show my gratitude to all of you, and especially Jennifer, Elise, Lucy, and all members to plan and execute this precious virtual visit. And this is last day of this visit. And we Japan are honor host today, and I will share our situation related to clinical research nurses in Japan. Here is today's content. Next session, Dr. Fujiwara, Keiichi Fujiwara, will tell you about Japanese research environment. And then Dr. Kohara will explain about the Japanese nursing system, education, licensure, and specialty. In the fourth part of today, I'm going to talk about Japanese clinical research nurses, and then I will invite you to Japanese University Hospital. So let's start. I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed researcher, Dr. Fujiwara, who I really respect. And he is a director of the Clinical Research Center at Saitama Medical University International Medical Center in Japan. He will introduce Japanese medical research environment honestly. And could you start your presentation, Dr. Fujiwara?
Can I get the permission to share my slide?
There we are.
Okay. Can you see my slides here? Okay. So thank you for giving me this great opportunity to introduce the investigator-initiated clinical trial system in Japan. So my name is Keiichi Fujiwara. I'm a professor of gynecologic oncology, Saitama Medical University International Medical Center. And I have been involved in the international clinical trials, mainly for the G1 oncology since 2002. And I'm get involved some of the clinical trial activities networks such as GCIG and GATIC, my group, and founding member of the Asian Pacific Gynecologic Oncology Trial, which is the one of the most important achievement here in Asia. And the Noriko is the operation chair since 2019, and she's doing very well, of course. And I'm a president-elect of the International Gynecologic Cancer Society and the council member of Japan Society of Pharmaceutical Medicine. Okay, so the first things that I want to show you is the scheme of the clinical trials in Japan. So there, we have two major components in our clinical trial system, which is one of which is a chicken, which is registration-directed clinical trials. And another one is investigator-initiated clinical trials, not for registration. The registration-directed trials can be divided into the company-sponsored or investigator-sponsored. And investigator-initiated the registration trials. This is called investigator-initiated registration-directed clinical trials, IRRDTCT. Okay. And the investigator-initiated trials, IIT, can be divided as using unapproved medical drug or device. And so this is called as an advanced medical care. And also we have the company-sponsored IITs. And finally we have none of the above too. Okay, so this is the summary of the scheme. And also I'd like to show you the regulation system for the clinical trials in my country. So there's a so-called JGCP, which was effective to 1998, and it was amended for investigator-initiated registration-directed trials can be performed in 2003. So before that, then investigators cannot conduct the registration-directed trials in my country. And we have the ethical guidelines for the clinical studies, which was in effect 2003. And the most updated amendment was issued this year and will be in effect about a month from now. So there was a couple of amendments between these years. And also we have third regulation systems, which called Clinical Trial Act, in effect 2017. So this was the lawful enforcement effect. So there's the JGCP and the Clinical Trial Act is a law, and the ethical guidelines is the guidelines. So these are the regulation systems in Japan. I have just summarized chronologically what has happened in the clinical trials regulations. So the left left half is the registration directed trials, and the right half is not for the trials, not for the registrations. And as you know, the international conference on harmonization for the GCP was effective to the 1990s, since 1990. So we are a little bit behind from the international regulation systems, but we are now catching up. But the problem is that getting complex. I will show you later. So I'd like to show you the relationship of the clinical trial systems and the regulations. So the JGCP is for the registration directed clinical trials. And investigator-initiated trials was regulated by the guideline. However, the Japanese government realized that it's not enough. So the Clinical Trial Act was issued to regulate the clinical investigator-initiated trials using unapproved medical drug or devices or all the company-sponsored intervention trials. And guidelines is the regulation for the none of above. Okay. So I'd like to mention about the differences in the level of requirement by trial regulations. So as you can imagine, regulatory enforcement such as monitoring frequency or whatever, JGCP is more strict than Clinical Trial Act, and then guideline requires less. Okay, and the things that happening here is the complexity of the ethical committee system, and the JGCP allows institutional review board only. So the JGCP doesn't allow the central review board. However, on the Clinical Trial Act, central ethical review is mandatory. And in the guideline, central review board or institutional, this is all, not all, it's or, okay. Central or institutional review board is allowed. So this is another complexity here. And also, the conflict of interest declaration system is also the complex. So JGCP or the guideline requires the standard format of the declaration of the COI. That is, Clinical Trial Act needs to submit the CTA specific COI forms. So which is very cumbersome to fill out those forms. So those are the three major differences between the level of a requirement by trials, like trials systems. So in this slide, I have created the funding system or support status for the clinical trials here in Japan. So for the registration directed or non-registration directed trial, there is a huge differences of such as funding or the support by clinical research associates mainly in the institution. So as you can imagine, company-sponsored the registration trials are funding rich, and also the support of the CRA is mandatory. And the funding for the investigator-initiated registration-directed trial is not as rich as the company sponsored, but there is some good source from the government to perform those registration-directed trials, because the support by CRAs is mandatory. On the other hand, for the non-registration-directed trials, such as regulated by the Clinical Trial Act or guidelines, some trials can get the funding from the companies or the Japanese government to run the trial. So I just said partially rich or partially rich to fair. And accordingly, the support by CRAs will be limited based on the amount of the funding. Okay, and the disaster is the IITs, which do not have the support or the funding, enough funding. The support by clinical research associates is, I would say, fair. I put it as fair. It's honestly, it's kind of a poor. So it's a dilemma how we protect the patients. So I will say that those are the huge demand for from the investigators' side to get the help of the nurses who knows the knowledgeable and very experienced with the clinical trial research, medical research. So in summary, regulations for the clinical trials in Japan is very complex, and clinical trial associates and professionals must prepare for this complexity. However, as I said in the previous slide, regardless of the similar scientific value for the patients, the support for the investigator-initiated trials by institutional CRC is much less than the registration-directed trials. So there is a huge room for clinical research nurses be involved to support those patients participating to the investigator-initiated trials, not for registrations. Okay, so this concludes my presentation, and I like to thank you for all. So research nurse activity in Japan is rising sun like this picture here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is very interesting to see the differences and the similarities. Could I just ask, Noriko, is it okay if I just ask a question?
Yes, of course, please.
Thank you. So tell me about the inspection process and how it comes about. Is it a regular standard timing that inspections might happen? Who does the inspection? Who's the regulator?
You mean the inspections for the registration or the audit for the trial?
For the trial, yes.
Oh,
as you're maybe as you've been running it, who
Mhm.
comes to check? We have the MHRA in the UK and the FDA in America.
So for the registration trials, we have the Japanese version of the FDA, which is called PMDA, inspect the trials but this is just for the drug approval trials. And for the not for registration drug approval, the trial protocol specified who will the audit in the trials. So sometimes the CRO will help the audit, and sometimes for the results not so rich trials, the investigator group will create the audit committee and for the peer review.
Wonderful. Is there a different type of audit for phase 1 studies, do you know? Or is it the same?
It's trial specific. So the audit for phase 1 is different from phase 3. And so it's I think the audit is also based on the risk of the level of the risk of the trial.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Noriko, if you just go to the next slide, let me just. As you know, I'm sure you know about South Africa's research. So if you can go to the next slide, I just want to ask, what's the difference between company sponsored in the chicken and in the ACT? You had company sponsored in both. So what is the difference between?
Oh, you mean my slide, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I show you my slide again. Where is it?
Sorry,
Can you see my slide now?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So the chicken is for the drug approval. Okay.
I think it was about the second slide.
Chicken slide.
There.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So the chicken is strictly for the drug approval purpose. Okay, and sometimes company can sponsor academic trial by to create some new evidences using the also already approved drug. Okay, so those trials will be regulated by the Clinical Trial Act. Does it make sense to you, Elise?
I
Still confusing.
No, it's because it's such a different system in South Africa. So let me just then also ask about funding. We're so used to apply to like Bill Gates and USAID and all of that. Do you also apply for those fundings or not?
Say it again. I didn't hear very well for the first the audio part.
So in terms of the funding,
Mhm.
what we do is we apply for Bill Gates Foundation funding or
Bill Gates.
US.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Bill Gates, yeah.
Mhm.
So where does or can I call it organization funding come into your funding system?
Do you mean grants and things, Elise?
Grants, yeah.
So for the investigator initiated registration directed trials, the Japanese government have some mechanisms to provide a grant. Very competitive, of course. So that they can cover all the costs of for the drug approval. However, for the evidence creating purposes using approved drug, already commercially available drug, there's the different funding resources from the government, and also company may have some grant providing systems according to the clinical trial protocol. So we can apply for those the grant application.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer to your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
So is there any questions? Okay.
That was very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Fujiwara, to share our medical research environment. As he said, we are now struggling in a very, very complex situation, regulation, and but I hope it will improve and the progress for conducting clinical trials smoothly in Japan. So next presenter is my friend and wonderful research nurse leader of Japan. She's one of officers of IACRN Japan chapter. And Dr. Kohara is a professor of School of Nursing. And she has been dedicating development of clinical research nurses education system and the environment in Japan. She's going to talk about Japanese nursing education and the research. And I can show you her pre-recording lecture today.
Hello everyone. My name is Izumi Kohara. I'm sorry for participating in this session by recording, but I'd like to talk about basic information about nursing education in Japan and the current status of research on clinical research nursing. First, I'd like to talk about the basic information of nursing education in Japan. 2020, there are 274 universities and 15 junior high schools and junior colleges and about 840 vocational schools for nurses. Universities offer a 4-year program, while junior colleges and vocational schools offer a 3-year program. There are no classes named after clinical research nursing.
Noriko, you need to,
In clinical
sorry.
research, drawing their clinical practice. As this graph shows, the number of universities and their enrollment capacity are rapidly increasing. Graduate school offers both master's and doctoral programs, and a number of graduate schools offer certified nurse specialist programs and their master's program. There are quite a few graduate schools that offer nurse practitioner education programs. Although there are no courses in clinical research nursing, some graduate schools cover clinical research nursing and their nursing management and nursing ethics classes. This graph shows that the number of graduate schools of nursing has also increasing rapidly in recent years. The Japanese Nurses Association grants certification to those who possess nursing skills and knowledge in a specific nursing field, and their specialized area for certified nurses as shown here. After obtaining a nursing license, a nurse must have a total 5 years of clinical experiences, complete a certified nursing education institute, and pass an examination to be certified nurses as a certified nurse. Certified Nurse Education Institute generally offers a 6-month educational program. Clinical research nursing is covered in a course related to cancer nursing, such as cancer chemotherapy and immunotherapy nursing. Next, I would like to talk about current status of research regarding clinical research nursing in Japan. From about 2000, research studies and activity reports can be found in journals and conferences. Around 2010, purpose of many studies were to understand patients. Since 2010, presentation on initiatives to improve the quality of nursing are increasing. Research aimed at understanding patients who participating in clinical research can be divided into the experiences of patients and the decision-making processes of patients. Next, I will introduce some representative studies. In this study, semi-structured interviews were conducted with 7 patients about patient experiences during the course of anti-cancer drug clinical trials, and the data were analyzed using a phenomenological approach. 14 themes were identified regarding the experiences from before the explanation of the clinical trial to the decision-making process, such as believing that the drug will work for me even though I'm not sure. As for the experiences from the enrollment to the end of the clinical trial, 15 themes were identified, such as confused by burden of the clinical trial. This variable study collected data by interviewing each study subject 4 times during the course of the study, from the beginning to the end, and suggests that nurses need to take into account the vulnerability of advanced stage cancer patients to participate in the only clinical trial available, actively work to reduce their burden, and continue to support their patient way of life, regardless of the outcome of the clinical trial. This is a study I conducted in which I performed semi-structured interviews with 25 patients who were informed about a phase 1 trial of anti-cancer drug and analyzed the data using a blended theory approach. The collectively was starting for a way to live to the end, and I found it to have 4 pages as shown in the slide. The implications were that patient decision-making is a difficult process that involves how to live through to the end of life, and that nurses have an important role to play in talking with patients about phase 1 trial, discussing what is important in their remaining life, and acknowledging that they have made an acceptable self-determination. This study, the decision-making process for acute leukemia patients, is qualitative analysis of data from semi-structured interviews conducted with 12 acute lymphoma patients or acute leukemia patients participating in a clinical trial. It was found that there were 2 periods of time. One is when the patient accepts leukemia in his or her own way and clarifies his or her hope to live and be cured. And the other is when the patient finds meaning and value in the clinical trial after clarifying their or their hope and decide to participate in the clinical trial. It was suggested that nurses needed to assess the value and the understanding of patients with acute leukemia and the status of family and their support, and that they needed to provide accurate information and correct any misinterpretation of the information they receive. It was also suggested that nurses need to be informed and educated about clinical trials. Next, I'd like to introduce the research and activities for improving the quality of clinical research nursing. Because of the background of many clinical trials in the field of oncology, several presentations are given every year on research and activities related to clinical research nursing in the general abstract of the annual meeting of the Japanese Society of Cancer Nursing. In the last 3 years, there was 1 presentation in 2019, 5 in 2020, and 4 in 2021. I would like to introduce some of the representative presentations. This was done by a research team including Ms. Fujiwara and me, and we reported the result of developing and measuring a scale for the degree of implementation and important awareness of decision support for patients in cancer clinical trials. We are currently working on developing a learning program on clinical research nursing, and we plan to measure the effectiveness of the learning program using the scale developed in this study. This was a report on the visualization of the overall structure of the clinical research implementation system and the role of nurses by developing a workflow diagram to promote professional collaboration in clinical research as one of the initiatives to improve the quality of clinical research nursing. It was reported that these initiatives led to the realization of smoother communication and stronger collaboration with other professionals. This is a presentation that reports on the development of clinical radar for a clinical trial unit nurse and its evaluation. Nurses assigned to clinical trial units are often confused about their roles and functions, but the clinical radar helps them visualize what they are aiming for and improve their self-efficacy. This is summary slide. Research on clinical research nursing in Japan initially focused on understanding patients participating in clinical trials, but has recently shifted to topics that are directly related to improving the quality of nursing care. Future directions include prospective studies to clarify the improvement of nursing quality, interventional studies to review effective learning programs for clinical research nursing, and qualitative studies to visualize practical knowledge and studies using mixed research methods. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. So this is the nursing education system and research, and there it's increasing the number of abstracts about the role of clinical nurse for conducting clinical research and collaboration between clinical research coordinators, clinical research associate, and clinical research nurses also. So for the next part of this program, I'm going to talk about the background of Japanese CRC and CRN. And this photo was taken in the UK study visit, the first study visit in 2018. I learned a lot from this visit, NHR and Christie, Manchester, and NHS Foundation Trust. And we visited the largest cancer center, the Christie, and their thoughtfulness for patients and their family members. They have Maggie's Center, which is the center to provide emotional and social support to patients in the research building. And they said that the support always open for all patients and family members. After that, I shared my this experience, great UK study visit experience about patient centricity and great organization to Japanese colleagues. And now I'm one of board members of Japanese Institute for Public Engagement as a research nurse. So I will start introducing Japanese research nurses. In Japan, there are research coordinators, clinical research coordinators, CRCs, and clinical research nurses. And many CRCs belong to clinical trial office or trial center. Compared to other countries, very few of CRCs work for the department, but central research office or research center. And here is the survey about research coordinators in I'm sorry. Research coordinator in 2018. Japan is very unique in that 1/3 of CRCs are nurses and 1/3 are laboratory technicians. In addition, pharmacists and nutritionists also play the role of clinical research coordinators. This makes it not easy for CRCs to develop disease expertise. For example, I used to work as a CRC. My first clinical trial support was for HIV patients, and I was responsible for several cancer trials at the same time. And then I got a rheumatology trial support. I did. And because I would like to develop my specialty, now I belong to oncology and palliative department, not central office. And there are increasing the number of research nurses and CRCs who belong to department and the disease-specific units. And one more thing, in Japan, about half or 1/3 of CRCs are dispatched from company called SMOs, site management organizations. I think this is because of the complexity of the employment system in Japan. For example, once you hire someone, it's difficult to fire them due to lack of ability or increase or decrease in workload. It's very difficult. So therefore, there are many temporary CRCs. Yes, recently I heard that they are spreading to other countries like this system, SMO system. So in this survey, 134 hospital and clinics, in-house coordinators, and 35 SMOs. Most clinical research nurses belong to nursing department in Japan. As in other countries, they are responsible for patient care and closest to the patient, that's the same. This is a table of the history of CRC and CRN in Japan. On the left side of this slide, I have listed the regulations which were already explained by Dr. Fujiwara. And please look at the right side of this slide. I'm very sorry for small font, but in 1998, CRC coordinator was officially developed in Japan. And 2001, CRC members started hold annual meetings. And the next year, the textbook was published. And one more next year, the Japanese Pharmacological Society created a certification for CRCs. But I already tell you about the background of CRCs. They have a lot of various different licensure. Half of the CRCs were nurses, and they thought that nurses at the time should not only play the role of coordinators, but also care for the research participants. So therefore, in 2006, the nurses, this group is CTNSIG, Clinical Trial Nurse Special Interest Group in Japanese Society of Cancer Nursing, established. That leader was the Dr. Kohara. She presented the previous sessions. And in 2008, an educational seminar was started. And in 2010, a textbook was published for clinical research nurses. In 2015, the first clinical research nurses session was held at the CRC conference. Finally, the IACRN Japan chapter was established in 2016, and last year, almost 100 nurses gathered for the first clinical research nurse forum by IACRN Japan chapter. This is the official letter from IACRN to Japan chapter when Japan chapter established. And we created our flyer in Japanese to disseminate our activities and promote clinical research nurses and IACRN to Japanese nurses. The flyer is now on the chapter website of the IACRN. Even though we have many Japanese nurses have a language barrier, but they do the best to participate this kind of network, ISRN or the Research Nurse Network. So I eager to support for example, translation or tell about ISRN to colleague. I'd like to support them to join the network. And this is the right side of left side of the slide, flyer of the forum, first Research Nurse Forum. And in the right side of the slide, officers of Japan chapter of IACRN. The Japan chapter hosted the first Japan Research Nurse Forum on 19th December last year. Around 100 nurses attended the online forum to learn about research nursing. And the 5 officers, we delivered our presentation about this kind of topics, fundamental of research and collaborating with team members, including research participants, the role and the importance of research nurses and researchers. The lecture was followed by a discussion on the patient care by research nurses. In the forum, around 70% participants are clinical nurses and clinical research nurses. And we had participants from 22 prefectures, mostly in Tokyo. And a couple of facilities and several nurses gathered in their room to participate. Yeah, like a China friend do that. And when the participants signed up for the forum, we asked the participants for write a few words of comment. Many here, I try to translate what they say into English. We asked before the forum, we asked the participants to write a few words of comment. Many motivating comments were heard like this. And I tried to, also after the forum, we got many feedbacks. Many nurses, participants gave us the positive feedback to the forum and expressed their learning motivation about research nursing. So the last part of today, I invite you to the virtual tour with some photos in Japanese university hospital. But before that, just a couple of slides, I'd like to explain about our current situation, COVID situation and the Japanese culture also. Let's look at the situation in Japan. We had 4 peaks in the number of confirmed cases so far. Japanese government announced the first state of emergency on 7th April last year until 25th May. And on early June, Tokyo alert was issued because Tokyo had the highest number of infected patients in Japan. So Tokyo governor announced the unique alert as an early, but after the lift of emergency, the number of infected cases had increased again. So actually now we are under the 4th wave in the state of emergency. In early April last year, the authority MHLW, Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare of Authority, notified to ease the regulation of telemedicine. And if patients don't want to or can't visit the hospital, we can also ship the drug to patient home directly. Here is from OECD report about the percentage of population aged 65 or over years old in 2020. Japan is now highest aged society in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has focused increased attention on social isolation and loneliness for all ages, particularly older adults and patients, as the most vulnerable at-risk segment of the population. And the pandemic has had a great impact on nurses and the research professionals' work. The Center for Clinical Trials, the Japan Medical Association, JMA, surveyed the impact on 154 academic sites. According to this survey, there was little impact on new clinical trials contracts, but there was a significant impact on hospital visit by pharmaceutical company and patient visit. In addition, 22% of hospitals stopped new recruitment, and some patients didn't want to visit the hospital because in Japan, local governors imposed restrictions on cross-state, cross-prefecture travel, which affected patient visit. For example, some patients refused to come to the hospital, our hospital, for their regulation visit for the trials. Because some large cities such as Tokyo and Osaka had high numbers of infected patients. So if they moved to Tokyo to other prefectures, they would be asked to stay home for 2 weeks quarantine, like a quarantine. So, but now we are slightly changing our situation. The vaccination are going a bit slow, but going. And the clinical trials have not stopped moving forward with the efforts of many people, many collaborators. The disease is not going away. So I hope and believe clinical research still bring hope for future patients. So finally, I can explain our hospital environment. The hospital I work at is a research hospital in Tokyo, Japan, with 130 beds. I mainly work for this research hospital of the University of Tokyo, Japan. This hospital is one of Harvard Institute regarding translational research. So mostly have conducted early phase and very small own trials. I also work for Saitama Medical University International Medical Center as an advisor of CRCs, CRNs, both. And there's Saitama Medical University International Medical Center usually conducts phase 3 confirmation trials, big trials. About this hospital, Dr. Fujiwara introduced you to inside of the hospital, and I will introduce the research, my research hospital of the University of Tokyo. They are my friend and colleagues, CRCs. They also have been dedicating to care for patients and to keep integrity of their trials. Left side of the slide, they are CRCs, 2 nurses, 2 pharmacists, laboratory technician, and 1 from SMO, site management organization company. And the right side of the slide, clinical nurses in the COVID unit. One of them is also taking the role of research nurse. And we have the specific research. The CRCs and the clinical nurses in the unit have meetings when the research participant admits hospital to share trial and patient information with each other. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the background of CRCs in Japan are diverse. So the patient information from clinical nurses is essential. So in our hospital, we have started to collaborate in the meeting with each other, CRC and CRN. This is one of the patient room in the inpatient unit. We can see the Tokyo Tower from this room. And just the collaboration, doctors explain about the research to the patient and the research nurse here and the clinical nurse here. And this is CRC's meeting. I asked CRCs about the research protocol, procedure, and the condition of their patient. And then they reported them to me. So, Dr. Fujiwara, could you introduce the hospital, your hospital, please?
Sure. As you can see, this is the Google Earth image of where the Japan is. And can go to the next slide, please. And the you know where the pin, there are 2 pins on the Tokyo area. Okay, next slide, please. So we are now zooming up to the around Tokyo area. So the pin in the Tokyo is the place where our royal palace exists. So in the center of Tokyo, and my center, Saitama Medical University International Medical Center, is about 30 miles northwest from the Tokyo. Next slide. So this is the photo image of our centers taken from the helicopter. So, and we have 700 beds and about 700 outpatients per day. And we have always have 650 patients in a hospital. And this, we have out of 700 beds, approximately 350 to 400 are the patients with a cancer. And another one is the cardiovascular disease. And another area is a stroke and emergency center. So we are focusing those 3 major areas, not the general hospital. We are focusing on the specific 3 areas. Next slide, please. And we have just taken the JCI about 5 years ago, and our catchphrase of the Saitama Medical University is "Your happiness is our happiness." Mm-hmm. Okay, next slide. So this is the view from the main entrance. Next slide, please. So when you get into the hospital, the very spacious foyer will welcome everybody, and so you can see the grand piano. So you can see how huge this entrance hall is. And also we have the kind of the facilities in the next. Can you tap? Yes. Because of the COVID situation, the visit to the restaurant by the patients and the families are restricted now, unfortunately. Next slide, please. So as I told you, we have 3 major departments. In the central area is for the central facilities like laboratories and the operation rooms, operation theaters. And those A, B, and D is the towers for the patients, outpatients area, and the wards. Next slide, please. Because of the COVID situation, everybody needs to wash your hand and disinfect your hands before entering the hospitals. And right-hand side is a cute cat show welcoming you, which is they give you some money. so, so it's a symbol of a wealth. Okay. All right. Yeah, next slide. So these are the outpatient areas. We call it a street. That it's a South Street, and North Street. We have the Lawson, which is a convenience store, as 24 hours on operation for the patients and families and the employees too. Next slide. So this is the kind of amenity shops taking care of the wigs and some beauty shops and other the functions to help the patients to receiving the chemotherapy and other the interventional therapies. Next slide, please. So we have the Starbucks in our hospital, and you can see the balconies behind, and the patients can and the families can wait there, drinking the coffee, having the pagers until the order of the visit or the laboratory test comes. Next slide. Here, the right-hand side view is the entrance of the outpatient infusion center. And left-hand side, you can see the automatic the check-in system. If you put your hospital card in, there's a pager specific for the patients comes from the machine. And also the too cute robot is carrying the blood or urine samples from the place where the drawing the blood room to the double laboratories. So it's very human-free trials to save some resources. Next slide, please. So here's our wards for the GYN oncology and the breast cancers. And this is the nurse station and the working at the counter, and the nurse manager is very shy. Next slide. And this is the pamphlet put on the every door that we are showing that we are always taking care of the clean hand before we touch you to the patient. Next slide. So when the Noriko came, we have encountered the director and the deputy director of the nursing department, and we took the picture because they are very, very supportive to promote clinical research nursing program in my institution. And so we're so excited to have these pictures and then we can show you. All right, next slide. This is the doctor's office in our the gynecological oncology department, and you can see the lots of the papers on the whiteboard. Those are the trials currently ongoing in my department, and you can see the ladies. She's the department hired clinical research coordinators. Next slide. So we have the office of you cannot read it because of too small characters, but this is the center, the office of the Centers of Clinical Research and Integrity, CCRI. So this I'm the chief of this CCRI group, and want to show the clerks. So data manager's office and the so-called clerks. And the next slide, please. So this is the office room for the CRCs. So we have about 24 CRCs, and half of them are from their site management organization, the commercial, the company who dispatch the CRCs. Next slide. So these are the pictures. Not all the CRCs and the staff is here, but these are our team to support the clinical trials. Next slide. So this is the CRN working group in the nursing department. Noriko, do you say something for this?
Yeah, I already explained about the nursing clinical research nursing group in IACRN, and the center of them is you already see Deputy Associate Director of Nursing Department, and other members are eager to learn how to care for the research participants. So we create clinical research nurses working group, and I participate in as an advisor research nurse, and we usually held some meeting in learning education opportunity once a month. So this is the meeting. We check our patient to about nursing care or progress of the clinical researches. So thank you, Dr. Fujibara, for this wonderful tour. Thank you so much. And this program, is there any question from you? Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm going to unmute Linda so she can talk too. Really wonderful, wonderful. Thank you both, and your colleague who recorded her session as well. So interesting. And I was just wondering, tell me a little bit about the chapter, Noriko. How many people do you think are in the chapter now?
Now we decided to open the chapter to have other with other members. So because our officers talking a lot about how to open the chapter to other nurses, because as I mentioned in the previous slide, a lot of CRCs here in Japan. So if the first 2016, if we open the chapter, many CRCs want to join, but we consider we have to focus on the clinical nurse first. So we prepare a lot for a couple of years. So now last year we decided to open the chapters. So in this year, maybe some nurses want to join our email us to want to join their chapter. So they are
Great.
increasing a number of chapter members.
Lovely. That's exciting.
Thank
And what
you.
do you think is going to happen with certification? Have you had any thoughts about the certification for research nurses that we've developed?
Yes, this year is a great milestone for research nurses to get certification, international certification. So, but it's difficult to apply from Japanese nurses because language barrier or something. So I support for the nurses to apply the certification for Japanese nurses. We are some planning.
Excellent. I'm trying to unmute other people if they, there we go.
So,
Hi,
you know,
Linda.
hi. Thank you so much for your session. And I'm always curious about Japan. And so this is a wonderful opportunity. I love visiting Japan, but this is the first time I really see what CRN do, you know, in Japan. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And I want to, you know, at least introduce you to Chonghua from China, because I think I private messaged you that she really would like to have some resources to people that have experience in managing phase 1 unit. So maybe you can wave to each other and later I will connect you through email. So
Thank
Chonghua,
you.
would you say hi?
Hi. Welcome.
It's my first
Yeah.
time to attend this meeting. Very exciting.
Oh, thank you so much for your nice word. Thank you.
Yeah, I just texted her a few hours ago. I say, hey, this is a great opportunity to, if you want to see Noriko, because I told her about your publication in managing, and now I see CRN, CRC working together. It's a lot of challenges, you know, and they're from different employers. It created an interesting dynamic, as you can imagine. So, yeah, wonderful. I do have one question. And that is, I think it's from Professor O'Hara, that talk about informed consent and you know the improving the clinical research nursing, helping people through the informed consent process. I'm curious about you know, because my upbringing is in Taiwan. So my basic training is in Taiwan, and then I came to the States, you know, 30 some years ago. So my whole career is in the United States. But knowing, you know, the Asian backgrounds, I see the difference. I don't know in Japan, informed consent process, is it a very independent decision, or is it, you know, how autonomous, like how patient making decision? Is it a collective among family members, or is it, or are they pretty independent on making for themselves?
Yes, that's the cultural background, as you say. Yes, Japanese, many investigator is the same as a clinician to the patient. So some patients confuse research and clinical treatment. So we try to divide the purpose of research and try to divide the explanation or environment between clinical setting and research.
Okay.
Yeah. So CRCs did many support for the investigator, but still how can I say, confuse between clinical treatment and research. Therapeutic misconceptions still there. And how could you, Dr. Fujiwara, how could you explain about the research for the patient without clinical setting?
currently, mainly the physician explain the clinical research, and both clinical research and the medical practice all together. And the independently, of course, we explain the clinical research. However, right now, for the registration purpose trial, we have the kind of support from the CRCs, but for the investigator-initiated trials, without having much of support, we really need to do it by ourselves. And now we realize that it's not enough. So we are now, trying to having the nurses help to let the patients better understand the clinical trials.
In terms of making decision to participate or not, do you find yourself explaining to patient itself more, or is it a joining decision among the patient with their family member? Like I have several experiences, a couple of years in China, and I noticed that actually the informing process end up explaining to the subject's family member, maybe their son, their daughters, because simply the subject doesn't want to make a decision themselves.
That kind of case happens very often here in Japan.
Okay.
Because we are afraid that the patients agree to participate and to the studies, but if something happened to the patient later on, the family member come to us, say the very radically accuse us sometimes. So to avoid those the conflict. I asked the patients to discuss this with the family before you making the final decision.
Good. I also have one comment, and that is really happy to see Dr. Fujiwara, be part of this presentation for Japan. I think that really shows the support from the medical colleagues, and I think. Noriko, you got a good support, I can see. So it's good.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So the Noriko has been involved in the development of the clinical research nursing program in my institution about the 1 year and 3 months, I think. And now the working group is going to promote to the committee in a couple of months. So we are now working very hard to negotiate with the hospital, managers, and he's very supportive now. So probably we will be able to create the committee and then promote some education to the nurses in all wards and our patients. So that is our goal, to better support our patients.
Yeah, that's such a wise path. I just like seeing so many combinations in the past that the investigators, the doctors that know to just really work alongside with nurses and bring nurses, CRNs into their research development usually have the most successful outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really want to emphasize, myself, I really didn't understand or realize what is the value of the clinical research nurses. So Noriko, teach us what is the clinical research nurses, and we finally realized, oh my God, this is the really a missing piece. So we need this. So So, the hospital leader is the kind of the mindset of the hospital leader is the similar to mindset of my 1 year ago. So I have to let them realize what is the importance. so I
Oh.
really appreciate Noriko. Thank you so much.
Yes,
yes.
we
Yeah.
all appreciate Noriko, and I think this is, that's so interesting what you say, Doctor. We had somebody come to my research facility, must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think he was from Singapore. I can't remember. I think it was Singapore, and he came to visit the University of Southampton, and then he came on a tour of the facility, and I took him for about half an hour, and I showed him the office and all the nurses, the research nurses, and he couldn't understand quite who they were and what they were doing. So it wasn't just a regular tour of look at our beautiful place. It was explaining, which I never really had to do before, explaining what the nurses were doing and why. And he just looked and he said, that's really fascinating. The nurses are doing all those things for the research. So at the end of the visit, my colleague from the university came back, and the three of us sat for about 10 minutes. And he looked at me and at my colleague, and he said, Professor, he said, Jennifer, said, you should pay her more, and research nurses, what a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was that was the first time anyone had sort of, I had not experienced that before. It was very interesting, but it's really true to get that understanding of the partnership and how important we are, and Noriko and her team and what she's developed. So she's very lucky. You're lucky to have each other, I think.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's
Yes.
mutual.
Yes.
Mutual. Yeah.
Yes. It's wonderful.
And I got some questions from China to Dr. Fujiwara.
Okay, sure.
Hi, this is Chunghua from China in Shanghai.
Hi.
Hi. I saw you the PPT for your hospital medical center. It's very interesting in my field. Why? Because I am the head nurse of phase 1 clinical ward in our hospital.
Mhm.
Have 50 beds in our ward.
Oh,
And
wow.
50 beds in a ward just for one clinical trial. This is a large number in our hospital. And we also have 60 CRCs and CRAs in our ward.
Oh my
This is
God.
a large number work friend in our ward. So it's very difficult to management, not only nurse, operation nurse, CIA, and even PI.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
So we have a lot of staff in our ward and patients in our ward. Sometimes it's difficult to management to cooperation or the department in the whole ward.
Yeah, I can realize, yeah.
That's a very big number.
Yeah.
That's a lot for you.
When
And
Noriko was saying that her husband is 130 beds, I was like, okay, I'm sure for Chonghua is adding 10 in the back, you know.
Yeah, University of Tokyo has another hospital, general hospital, and they had over 1,000 beds. So our hospital,
Oh, that's big.
yeah,
That's big
our
hospital.
hospital is one of the University of Tokyo hospital and focus on the research. So that's small.
Yeah, research hospital.
In my institute.
Our hospital had a plan to establish a new building for the clinical trial. We want to have 300 beds just for the clinical trial.
Wow.
So huge
Wow.
for our hospital, even the challenge for me. So I needed to your help, and I needed to all of the world, the CRC, CRAs, the friend, we need to contact each other for a long time, and we and also need help for you. This is my first time to attend this meeting. With Jennifer, I have Jennifer email yesterday, so
Was that you? Okay.
I will to write some my questions and to email for you and all of the parents and to communicate each other. So
Yes.
very exciting for the
This
for the
is what we want.
We also have lessons. We also have Starbucks in our hospital. So hospital. Yeah. So
Well,
excited. In the future, we can go each other, go around to China, to Japan, to UK, and to even the world of our world to have a more communication in our clinical trial nursing. We also hope to get some guidelines in China to cooperation the even research nurse, operation nurse, all of the world, all of the department in our world to management to set up a fellowship to follow ship to set up the fellowship just to management our world. I hope it's my work objective. Thank you.
Thank you. So I also want to visit South Africa to see Aries. Yes, Dr. Fujiwara talked about the environment of the great environment, South Africa. To me,
You're most welcome. When we can start to travel, I do think we need to it's different to, I was at, like you've been on the UK study visit, I was there in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different to hear about it, like now, and to actually experience the hospital, the environment, to go from, the different sections in the research process. So when we can start to travel, we need to organize a physical travels as well, visits as well.
Yes.
I'd love that.
Thank
I know. I
you.
was going to come. I thought we would be in Japan this year.
No.
I kept saying to Noriko, you need to host visits.
Yeah.
Wow, I would want to go.
2021. That's what I
Thank you.
thought would happen, is that we'd all be in Japan visiting you and not in the UK. Yeah, it will be wonderful. I think we have some, this is providing a really good basis for us to work together, to collaborate. I mean, to see all these people from all these different countries, is just so wonderful, coming together like this. And I'm just so proud that, Linda and Elise and Noriko for the IACRN have been working so hard to make sure that we reach out to people and to bring new faces together. There's so much we can learn from each other. I've enjoyed this so much. And it doesn't matter that it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's wonderful. I could sit here all night talking to you.
Thank you, our president.
Oh, you're amazing, Noriko. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And
Hey,
we're so,
Elise, I have one quick thing. I think you were talking about IIT and where to get a grant.
Yes.
Was it? I don't know if this will work but I know that in the States, every major pharma would have it under their medical affair department, or like under their medical affair would have allocated grant for IIT. And so, my investigator, in my office, we had help investigator to get grant that way. And some are just the medical product itself. Some would be medical prop plus, all the supplies and personnel needs. So I don't know if that's something that you will want to look into. Yeah.
Yeah, what I realized when I asked the question is the scale of the research that you do, you need to have a different kind of funding or grant. You can't just go from applying for this study and that study. Your system works totally different from what I'm used to, because I've never heard of a research hospital. Yeah, I'm used to a hospital that maybe do a bit of research as part of the hospital functioning. But for Noriko, for instance, to work in a research only hospital, that is different. I'm not used to that.
Same here. And the only other time I've seen that is at NIH with the clinical center, where it's all research. I'd not seen, we don't have a research hospital here either. All of the hospitals are doing research.
Yes.
Which is something quite amazing that we've achieved. But that makes a very different combination of clinical and research. So it's fascinating to see.
Yeah.
But so I have a question for Noriko. So currently, is there any training, clinical research training happening with basic students? Students that's.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, some research nurses deliver their lecture in the undergraduate school and graduate school both, but not many, very few. But try to disseminate the important role of clinical research nurses to nursing students. Yeah, we try.
Okay.
Mm.
We're trying to do that in a very coordinated way now nationally. So I do the presidency instead of sleeping. I'm president of IACRN, but one of my jobs, I'm matron in a research facility in the UK, but I'm also associate director of nursing for NIHR, which is the big funder for research in the UK. And we're looking at creating some education toolkits package for universities to use so that it makes it easier for them to just take a session or do some self-directed learning modules that undergraduate students can use. So
It's
it's
great.
interesting. We have to also get the younger students. We have to get the young people to come into nursing. So is there a big nursing shortage in Japan, Noriko?
Yes, right.
Yeah. So it's global, it's everywhere. So we have to make new nurses. We need more nurses. We need to encourage people to come.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will happen. So some of us can finally retire one day.
I also, can I just ask a question to Professor Fujiwara? So the data that you're collecting, is that on paper, or do you have a electronic database that they enter the data into?
Can you repeat your question?
Jennifer, Jen, can you just, I think it's my accent.
Maybe it's my accent isn't any better. We all have accents. I think it's about the data capture. So is it electronic data capture or is it paper databases for your research, or a combination?
Actually, it depends on the trials. So the main, mostly the electric data capturing. However, for the small trials, which has not funded very well, investigators use the paper data sheet and use some database software by themselves.
Yeah, so it depends on the grant
Yeah.
Okay.
money.
And sometimes the electronic systems are so difficult.
Mm.
And when the Wi-Fi, we found this with the vaccines for COVID. Some of the databases were so very hard to use. And then when we weren't in the hospital for the research, when we were in the vaccine hub in the sports hall at the university to try to get the systems to work properly, wasn't always easy. Oh, he has to go.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
So we have to close this session.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Noriko.
Look forward to seeing all of you in the next IACRN conference.
Yes, and tomorrow is
Global
the
meet and
UK.
greet.
Come back to the UK tomorrow morning.
Oh, yes, yes,
Linda, I expect you to wake up and come back.
yes.
So
Come
just
back
to be
to England.
fair, right?
Okay,
So
thank
It's
you.
Right.
wonderful to see you all, and do email me from China, my friend. How do I say your name?
I will send some of my question and I will give you email. Also give Noriko.
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 Yes,
No.
yes.
Just
How
for one,
do I pronounce your name?
Chonghua.
Chonghua. Thank you.
It's
Chonghua.
the pronunciation for the foreigner.
Hey, I took Mandarin at university. I can say I can san shi. That's not bad.
We have to be very careful now.
That's all I can say. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Very good. Very good.
One last question just for the Noriko. Okay. May I have the last question for Noriko? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
I don't know in Japan for the operationers for the clinical trial to operation, give infusion, give medicine for our patients. Do you have any guideline for your work or just only the SOP according the protocol to do this work?
For support for clinical trials or
Yeah. For clinical trial, do you have any nursing SOP for the clinical trial?
We do.
You have in UK you have
You done?
just protocol or SOP or guideline for
We have probably about 30 SOPs for phase 1 for
just
nurses.
for one, just a SOP, not guideline.
We have SOPs that we make to run the research. Yeah.
This SOP is just using in your hospital, in your medical center, not on for the whole country, whole UK.
So we have MHRA is our regulator, and we have a guideline from them about running phase 1, which is in a book like this thick. So
I also want to find this book. Yeah, in China we have know the phase 1 clinical trial operationers work guidelines. We have now. So I want to establish the guidelines for this field. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have phase 1 regulations, and we actually just created a high-risk guideline. So we have 2 things because it's complicated. The phase 1 regulations are not mandatory by the government. They're optional to follow this regulation. So we don't have to follow the phase 1 accreditation scheme. We can choose to, but we don't have to. And it's really meant for commercial phase 1 companies when they don't have affiliation with a hospital. So if a company wants to develop phase 1 studies, these regulations were for them. We work within a hospital like you and with a university. So we have lots of safety measures that the company doesn't have. So for us in our research facility, we don't have to follow the guidelines. We choose to follow the guidelines.
We choose.
We
So
choose
evidence,
to raise the standard by meeting the higher level of regulation, of phase 1 regulation. And to do that, we've created SOPs to make sure we meet every step, because they don't tell you how to do it. They just tell you what to do, the
So-
regulations.
so all of these SOP or guidelines, you have the evidence-based. Evidence-based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I will give email, and then we will to share some paper work. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I also
So
want to know. Okay.
it might be a little while before I can share things, because we're just about to submit our new bid for our funding. Every 5 years, we have to get more money from the government, and we're just starting that now. And it's hard for us to share things when we're competing for our money. But I will be able to share more with you in the future. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. In Japan, do you have the same? Japan,
Yeah, yes.
のりこさん
medical.
Yeah, Yoshimi said something.
Yes, I am Yoshimi Fukagawa. I am research nurse in Kyoto University Hospital. And I, 藤原さん、私、4月から兼任でオペレーションルームになったんですが、
She said she in
I am
charge of
working in
operation room.
operation theater in Kyoto University Hospital, but we have no SOP about
She said,
about clinical trial, but we will make SOP or nothing procedure about IPS clinical trial or other trial, though we will join the other countries or other IACRN network. We will try next step in clinical trial, nothing.
yeah, it depends on the institute, hospital.
Yeah.
うん、
藤原さん、すいませんでした。ちょっと中国の
thank
方
you.
と少しお
Thank
話し
you.
したくて。
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. I'm so happy to participate in the meeting. Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful. You should come to UK tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
We
tomorrow.
start at 9:30. What time will that be, Noriko? 9:30 in the morning, UK.
9:30 時間後だから、5 p.m. in Japan.
Oh, so after work.
Mhm.
After work, you should come to
Yes.
the UK. And it's
Perfect.
the same link, and it would be wonderful if you could come back. I
So,
need to go now. I need to
Yeah,
go to
thank
sleep.
you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for all of your to participate in this Japanese session. Thank you.
Thank
so
you for
Wonderful.
hosting it. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you. It was a huge success, Noriko, and people
you
will love
so
to
much.
see the recording as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Really great.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.